In the quiet darkness of NASA's Deep Space Listening Station, Dr. Alan Garrison sat hunched over his computer screen. The clock on the wall showed 3:27 a.m., but he felt no tiredness. For 15 years he had searched the stars for signs of other life. Tonight something had changed. The signal was weak but clear, coming from the Epsilon Eridani system about 10.5 light-years from Earth. At first, Alan thought it might be random space noise or a glitch in the system, but after running it through the translation matrix again and again, he knew this was it. The moment that would change human history forever. "Get Dr. Rodriguez in here now," Alan said to his assistant, his voice shaking slightly, and called the director. Within an hour, the small monitoring station was filled with scientists and government officials, all staring at the screen as the translation program worked to decode the alien message. Dr. Maria Rodriguez, the lead linguist on the project, pointed to patterns forming on the screen. "It's definitely artificial. The pattern repeats with small variations that suggest language, not natural phenomena." The director of NASA stood silent, his face pale in the blue light of the monitors. "What are they saying?" Alan took a deep breath. "They're asking for help. They're being attacked." The room fell silent. After decades of searching for alien life, humanity's first contact was a desperate cry for help from across the stars. Within 6 hours, the president called an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council, the world's most powerful. Leaders gathered to hear the message that had traveled across 10.5 light-years of space. "We are the Syrians. Our civilization faces extinction. A force known as the Void Consortium attacks our worlds. They destroy without mercy. Our defenses fail. Our allies have fallen or fled. If any civilization receives this message, we beg for assistance. We have much to offer in exchange for survival." The message played on repeat as world leaders argued about what to do. Some nations wanted to ignore it. Others suggested sending only scientific or diplomatic missions. A few pushed for military intervention. President Olivia Martinez of the United States stood up, silencing the room. "For centuries, humanity has looked to the stars and wondered if we were alone. Now we know we are not. And our first action as a known member of the galactic community will define us forever. I propose we send help, real help, military help." The debate lasted for days, but in the end, 7 nations agreed to contribute their most advanced ships and personnel to what would become humanity's first interstellar war fleet. Captain Samantha Wright stood on the bridge of the USS Valiant, Earth's newest and most advanced warship. At 42, she had spent her entire adult life in the United Space Force, rising through the ranks during the conflicts that followed the resource wars. She never imagined her first deep space mission would be to save an alien civilization. "Captain, all systems are ready for departure," said Lieutenant Commander Greg Powell. Her second-in-command. Sam nodded, looking at the 6 other ships in formation around them. The UES Intrepid, Defender, Courage, Guardian, Protector, and Hope formed humanity's response to the alien cry for help. Together, they carried the best weapons Earth had developed, along with 5,000 soldiers, scientists, and diplomats. "Open a channel to all ships," Sam ordered. Greg tapped a few buttons on his console. "Channel open, Captain." Sam took a deep breath. "This is Captain Wright. Today we leave our solar system not for conquest or exploration, but to answer a call that transcends species and star systems. A call for help. We carry with us not just the hopes of Earth, but the responsibility of showing who we truly are as a species. Whatever we find out there, whatever dangers we face, remember why we go. Safe journey to all." On the ground, thousands of people gathered to watch the fleet depart. This was humanity's first real step into the stars. President Martinez stood on a stage, surrounded by the leaders of the other nations that had contributed to the mission. "Our history is filled with moments of cruelty and moments of kindness," she said to the crowd and the billions watching around. "The world, today we choose kindness. We choose to risk our lives for strangers across the stars. That choice defines us more than any flag or border." Aboard the Valiant, Dr. Nicole Foster worked to learn more about the Syrians and their attackers. As the chief science officer, she had studied the distress signal more than anyone. The Void Consortium seems to be a group that conquers systems for resources, she explained to Captain Wright in her office. From what we can piece together, they strip planets and move on, leaving nothing behind, Sam frowned. And the Syrians? What do we know about them? Nicole pulled up an image created from the limited data they had. They seem to be aquatic, somewhat like our octopuses, but with bioluminescent features. Their technology is advanced, possibly more advanced than ours in some areas, but they appear to be peaceful. Their weapons are mainly defensive. In the ship's tactical center, Lieutenant Commander Jake Miller prepared for battle against an enemy he knew almost nothing about. He ran drills with the crew, testing every weapon system and defense measure. We don't know what we're flying into, he told his team, but whatever it is, we need to be ready. Ambassador Kevin Reeves spent his time preparing for first contact with both the Syrians and potentially the Void Consortium. As a veteran diplomat, he had negotiated peace during the resource wars, but this would be unlike anything in human experience. Our goal is to save the Syrians, he told his diplomatic team. But if we can resolve this without more bloodshed, that would be ideal. 3 weeks into their journey, the experimental FTL drives continued to function beyond expectations. The ships moved through space faster than light, bending the rules of physics in ways that scientists had only theorized until recently. In her private quarters, Sam looked at a picture of her husband and daughter back on Earth. She had left them behind for a mission that might be one way. The technology was new, the enemy unknown, and the distance vast. Captain, to the bridge, Greg's voice came through the ship's communication system. Breaking her moment of reflection. When Sam arrived on the bridge, the main screen showed a massive energy surge ahead of them. We're picking up signs of large-scale combat, said the sensor officer Linda Carter. Multiple energy weapons firing, explosions consistent with antimatter detonations. Sam straightened her uniform. The moment of truth was approaching faster than they had expected. All hands to battle stations. Contact the other ships. We're about to meet our new allies and their enemies. As red alert klaxons sounded throughout the ship, Sam looked out at the stars streaking past the viewports. Humanity had answered a call for help from the stars. Now they would find out what that really meant. The 7 ships of Earth's fleet dropped out of FTL speed at the edge of the Epsilon Eridani system. The crew of the used Valiant stood in silence as the main view screen showed the scene before them. The space around the 4th planet was filled with debris and the flashes of weapon fire. Large black ships surrounded a small moon where the last of the Syrian defenses fought desperately. Full scan of the battlefield, Captain Sam Wright ordered. Her voice steady despite the chaos they had entered. Lieutenant Linda Carter's fingers moved quickly over her console. I count 37 enemy vessels, Captain. They appear to be focusing their attack on the largest moon of the 4th planet. There are energy shields around parts of the moon's surface, but they're failing. Sam studied the tactical display. The enemy ships were massive, at least 3 times the size of the Valiant. Their hulls were black and angular, absorbing light, rather than reflecting it. Occasional flashes of red energy burst from their weapons ports, hammering the moon's defenses. Can we establish communication with the Syrians? Sam asked. Communications officer Eric Daniels worked at his station. I'm broadcasting on the same frequency as their distress signal, Captain, trying to match their language patterns. A few tense minutes passed. Then the main screen flickered, and an image appeared. The alien was, just as Dr. Foster had predicted, an aquatic-looking being with tentacle-like appendages and skin that pulsed with blue-green light. Its large eyes blinked rapidly as it studied the humans. This is Captain Samantha Wright of the United Earthship Valiant. We received your distress call and have come to help. The alien's skin flashed with patterns of light. The ship's computer worked to translate both the visual signals and the strange clicking sounds it made. I am luminous thread of hope, last defender of Syria, the translation came through. You have traveled across the void to aid strangers? Why would your kind risk yourselves for us? Sam stood straighter. Because that's what humans do. We help those in need. The alien's skin brightened considerably. We have little time. The Void Consortium has nearly breached our final defenses. They seek our world's core minerals and care nothing for our lives. We understand, Sam said. Hold on a little longer. Help has arrived. She turned to her crew. Battle stations. Alert all ships to form defensive positions between the Consortium, fleet, and the moon. Weapons hot, but hold fire until my command. I want to try talking first. The 7 Earth ships moved into formation, placing themselves between the attackers and the desperate Syrians. Though smaller than the enemy vessels, the human ships bristled with the most advanced weapons Earth had developed on the tactical deck. Lieutenant Commander Jake Miller prepared the weapon systems. Main cannons charged, Captain. Missile tubes. Loaded. Point defense systems active. Open a channel to the Consortium ships, Sam ordered. After a moment, Eric looked up from his console. Channel open, broadcasting on all frequencies with universal translation protocols. Sam took a deep breath. This is Captain Samantha Wright of the United Earth Fleet. The civilization you are attacking is now under our protection. Withdraw. Your forces immediately or face the consequences. For nearly a minute there was no response. Then a harsh, mechanical voice came through the speakers. Unknown vessels. Your interference is irrelevant. This system and its resources are claimed by the Void Consortium. Depart or be destroyed with the natives. Sam's jaw tightened. That's not going to happen. This is your final warning. The response came in the form of energy blasts as 3 of the black ships turned toward the human fleet and opened fire. Evasive maneuvers, Sam shouted as the bridge rocked from near misses. Return fire! All ships engage targets at will! The space between the fleets lit up with energy beams and missile trails. The human ships darted between the larger enemy vessels, using their superior speed and maneuverability to avoid the worst of the enemy fire. The used Defender took a direct hit to its engines but continued fighting. The UES Hope launched a barrage of missiles that struck one of the Consortium ships, causing explosions along its hull. In the Valiant's tactical center, Jake coordinated their attacks. Their ships have strong frontal shields but weaker protection on their rear quadrants. Targeting patterns adjusted. The human fleet adapted quickly, using tactics that confused the methodical Consortium forces. 2 ships would draw enemy fire while a third attacked from a blind spot. The Valiant spun on its axis to bring all weapons to bear on a particularly large enemy vessel. Dr. Nicole Foster worked frantically in her lab, analyzing the enemy ship's energy signatures. Captain, I'm detecting unusual radiation from their main power cores. If we can target those areas precisely, we might be able to disable them without destroying them completely. Sam relayed the information to the fleet. Focus fire on the coordinates Dr. Foster is sending to your tactical officers. The battle intensified. A Consortium beam sliced through the UES Protector's lower deck, venting atmosphere into space. Emergency protocols sealed the damaged sections, but not before 20 crew members were lost to the vacuum. The Syrians, seeing the humans fighting on their behalf, rallied their remaining ships. 5 small bioluminescent vessels joined the battle, their weapons surprisingly effective against the Consortium ship's engines. 4 hours into the battle, the tide began to turn. 3 Consortium ships had been disabled, and 2 more had withdrawn from the fight, but the human fleet had suffered heavy damage. The used Courage was dead in space, its engines destroyed. The Valiant's hull was breached in 2 places, and fires burned in its lower decks. In engineering, Chief Engineer Bill Harrison and his team fought to keep the ship's systems online. Rerouting power from auxiliary generators, he shouted over. The alarms. Coolant leak in Section 4. On the bridge, Sam received reports of casualties from throughout the ship. 17 dead, 32 injured. She pushed aside her grief, focusing on the battle. Captain, Eric called out, I'm receiving a transmission from the Syrian command center. Their main shield is about to fail. If it goes down, they'll be defenseless. Sam looked at the tactical display. The largest consortium ship was positioning itself for a final assault on the moon. Its weapons were powering up for what would likely be a devastating attack. "All power to engines and forward shields," she ordered. "Set course to intercept that dreadnought." Her second-in-command, Greg Powell, looked at her in shock. "Captain, our shields are at 27%. We can't take a direct hit from that thing." Sam's expression remained determined. "We didn't come all this way to watch them die, Commander. The Valiant was built to protect others. That's what we're going to do." The damaged ship surged forward, placing itself directly between the consortium dreadnought and the Syrian moon. The enemy vessel fired its main weapon, a beam of concentrated energy that struck the Valiant head-on. The bridge shook violently as systems overloaded and panels exploded. Emergency lighting flickered on as the main power failed. "Shields critical. Hull breach on decks 3 through 7. Someone shouted through the smoke. Sam pulled herself back into her chair. "Return fire, everything we've got." The Valiant's remaining weapons fired in unison, joined by the other human ships and the Syrian vessels. Their combined firepower struck the consortium dreadnought's vulnerable rear section, causing a chain reaction of explosions that ripped through the massive ship as the enemy flagship began to break apart. The remaining consortium vessels started to retreat, pulling back from the moon and the human defenders on the Valiant's damaged bridge. The crew watched in exhausted silence as the enemy fled. Sam wiped blood from a cut on her forehead and turned to Eric. "Open a channel to the Syrian command center." The alien leader appeared on screen, its skin pulsing with bright patterns. "You saved us," Luminous Thread of Hope said simply. "At great cost to yourselves." Sam looked around at her injured crew and damaged ship. "The cost would have been greater if we had done nothing." 3 days after the battle, the human fleet had taken up defensive positions around the Syrian moon. Emergency repairs were underway on all ships. The used Valiant, though severely damaged, remained operational enough to serve as the command center for the human forces. Captain Sam Wright stood in the ship's medical bay, visiting the wounded. Beds lined the walls, filled with injured crew members. The ship's doctor, Helen Ward, moved between patients, checking monitors and administering medication. "How many did we lose?" Sam asked quietly. Helen's face was tired, dark circles under her eyes from working without rest since the battle. 43 confirmed dead on the Valiant. Nearly 200 across the fleet. We have over 300 wounded, about 70 with serious injuries. Sam nodded, the weight of command heavy on her shoulders. Each death was her responsibility. These people had followed her across the stars to help strangers, and many would never return home. "Captain, to the bridge." Greg's voice came over the intercom, interrupting her thoughts. When Sam arrived on the bridge, she found Ambassador Kevin Reeves waiting with Greg. The diplomat looked excited. "Captain, the Syrians have invited us to their central habitat," Kevin said. "This is a significant honor. According to what we've learned, no other species has been allowed into their inner sanctum." Sam looked at the view screen showing the moon's surface. The Syrians had built their colony primarily underground, with only a few structures visible on the surface. Those structures glowed with the same bioluminescence as the aliens themselves. "When do we leave?" Sam asked. "They're sending a transport vessel for us in 1 hour," Kevin replied. "They've requested you, myself, Dr. Foster, and Lieutenant Commander Miller." Sam nodded. "We'll be ready." An hour later, a sleek Syrian ship docked with the Valiant. Unlike the angular human vessels or the black consortium ships, the Syrian craft was smooth and curved, its hull shifting with patterns of blue and green light. The 4 humans boarded the alien vessel with a mix of caution and excitement. This was humanity's first time setting foot on an alien craft. The interior was surprisingly comfortable, with an atmosphere and gravity similar to Earth's. The walls pulsed with gentle light, and what appeared to be living coral formed the control surfaces. A Syrian guide led them to the moon's surface and then into a large elevator that descended deep underground. When the doors opened, the humans gasped at what they saw. The Syrian habitat was a vast underground ocean. Bioluminescent structures rose from the water like coral reefs, connected by translucent bridges. Thousands of Sirians moved through the water and air, their skin glowing with patterns of light that seemed to communicate complex messages. "It's beautiful," Nicole whispered, her scientific mind already cataloging the wonders around them. Their guide led them across one of the bridges to a large central structure. Inside, 7 elder Sirians waited in a chamber half filled with water. Their skin glowed brighter than the others, with complex patterns flowing across their tentacle-like bodies. Luminous thread of hope floated at the center of the group. "Welcome, humans, to the heart of what remains of our civilization. Once, we inhabited 12 worlds across 3 star systems. Now this moon is all that remains." Through the translation devices, the humans expressed their sympathy and introduced themselves. "Properly, we wish to understand why you came," said one of the elders, whose name translated to Deep Current of Wisdom. "No species has ever answered a distress call from another without expectation of reward. What do you seek from us?" Sam looked at her companions, then back at the Syrian elders. "We seek nothing but your safety. On our world, we believe that helping others in need is the right thing to do." The Syrian skin flashed with patterns that the translators couldn't fully interpret. They seemed to be communicating among themselves. Finally, Luminous Thread of Hope spoke again. "We have examined your damaged vessels. Your technology is less advanced than ours in many ways, yet you fought against an enemy that has conquered hundreds of worlds. You knew you might not survive, yet you came. This is something we have never encountered before." Kevin stepped forward. "Humanity has a long history of both great cruelty and great compassion. In coming here, we chose to define ourselves by our best qualities, not our worst." The Syrians led the humans deeper into their habitat, showing them technologies beyond human understanding. They explained how the Void Consortium had attacked without warning 3 years earlier, systematically destroying their colonies and driving them back to this final outpost. "They seek the rare minerals in our world's cores," explained a Syrian. "Scientists named swift patterns in light. They care nothing for life or civilization. They harvest, then move on." Jake studied their defensive systems with professional interest. "Their forces will return, and in greater numbers. We hurt them, but we didn't stop them." The Syrian agreed, its skin darkening with what seemed to be concern. "Our defenses were nearly depleted before your arrival. We have begun to restore them, but we cannot withstand another major assault." Nicole had been examining Syrian medical technology with fascination. "Perhaps we can help each other. Your medical science is far beyond ours. We have wounded who might benefit from your knowledge." The Syrians readily agreed to help the injured humans. In return, they were intrigued by human tactical thinking, which was wildly different from their own methodical approach. "Your species fights with what appears to be random variation and unpredictable maneuvers," said a Syrian military leader named Sharp Edge of Defense. "The consortium was confused by your tactics. They rely on calculating precise responses to known strategies." Jake smiled. "We call it improvisation. Humans are good at making things up as we go along." As the day progressed, the two species began to form a bond of mutual respect. The Syrians brought their best medical experts to the human ships, using advanced techniques to heal injuries that would have been fatal with human medicine. In exchange, human tactical officers began training Syrian defense forces in unpredictable combat maneuvers. That evening, as the humans prepared to return to their ships, Luminous Thread of Hope approached Sam privately. "We have detected large energy signatures at the edge of our system," the Syrian leader said, its skin pulsing with urgent patterns. "The consortium is returning with a much larger fleet. They will arrive in approximately 3 of your Earth days." Sam's heart sank. The human fleet was still badly damaged. 3 days wasn't enough time for proper repairs. "How many ships?" "Our sensors detect over 100 vessels, including 3 dreadnoughts larger than any we have seen before." Sam nodded grimly. "We'll need to combine our forces and knowledge if we're going to survive this. Can your scientists help speed our repairs?" The Syrian skin brightened. We will do more than that. We have studied your weapons and defenses. With your permission, we can enhance them with our technology. For the next 3 days, humans and Syrians work together around the clock. Syrian engineers help repair the damaged human ships, adding their advanced shield technology and upgrading the weapon systems. Human tactical officers designed battle plans that combined human unpredictability with Syrian technical precision. In the Valiant's conference room, Sam met with the captains of the other ships and the Syrian leadership. The tactical display showed the approaching consortium fleet, a massive force that outnumbered them 10-1. Even with our combined forces and upgraded ships, a direct confrontation would be suicide, said Captain John Weber of the UES Intrepid. Sam studied the display. Then we don't fight fair. We use what they don't expect. The Syrian leaders watched with fascination as the humans devised a plan that no Syrian would have considered. It was risky, relied heavily on timing and misdirection, and had so many potential points of failure that the logical Syrians found it difficult to accept. This plan defies conventional tactical wisdom, said Sharp Edge of Defense, its skin flashing with uncertainty. Jake grinned. That's kind of the point. The consortium expects conventional tactics. We're going to show them something new. As the meeting ended, Sam looked out at the stars through the viewport. In less than 24 hours, the consortium would arrive. With an overwhelming force, the fate of the Syrian species and the human fleet would be decided. We came across the stars to help, she said quietly to herself. And that's exactly what we're going to do. The day of the consortium's return arrived with a tense silence across the human fleet and Syrian defenses. Captain Sam Wright stood on the bridge of the U.S. Valiant, watching the long-range sensors. The enemy fleet was massive, over 100. Ships including 3 dreadnoughts that dwarfed even the largest vessels from the previous battle. All ships report ready, Captain, said Greg, his voice steady despite the odds they faced. Sam nodded. And the Syrians? Their remaining vessels are in position. The moon's defense grid is at full power with the upgrades we helped install. Sam took a deep breath. The plan they had created was risky, but it was their only chance against such overwhelming numbers. Send the signal to begin Operation Trojan. All ships maintain radio silence from this point forward. Throughout the fleet, engines powered down. The 7 human ships and 12 Syrian vessels drifted into carefully calculated positions among the debris field from the previous battle. From a distance, they would appear to be nothing more than destroyed hulks. On the bridge of the Valiant, only emergency lighting remained active. The crew spoke in whispers, though there was no logical reason for it. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Consortium fleet entering sensor range, Linda reported from her station. 87 smaller vessels, 15 mid-size cruisers, and 3 dreadnoughts. Estimated arrival in 30 minutes. Sam checked the tactical display. Everything depended on timing and the enemy following their expected pattern of behavior. If the consortium commanders had learned from the previous encounter and changed their tactics, the human plan would fall apart. The minutes ticked by slowly. In engineering, Bill Harrison and his team stood ready beside the modified engines. The Syrians had helped install technology that would allow the ships to produce a burst of speed beyond anything they had been capable of before. But it could only be maintained for a few minutes before burning out the systems. Consortium fleet is deploying into attack formation, Linda said. They're proceeding exactly as predicted, approaching in 3 waves with the dreadnoughts in the rear. Sam allowed herself a small smile. The consortium forces were behaving just as the Syrians had said they would, methodical, predictable, and overconfident. They're scanning the debris field, Eric reported from communications. Standard sweep patterns. Sam held her breath. This was the crucial moment. If the consortium detected their powered-down ships among the debris, the element of surprise would be lost. After several tense minutes, Linda looked up from her console. They've completed their scans. They're proceeding toward the moon without altering course. They didn't spot us. A collective sigh of relief passed through the bridge. The first part of the plan had worked. Now came the difficult part. The first Wave of consortium ships is approaching the moon's defense grid, Linda reported. Syrians are powering up their defensive weapons as planned. On the main screen, they watched as the Syrian defenses opened fire on the approaching consortium ships. The bioluminescent weapons of the moon's defense grid were beautiful and deadly, cutting through space with beams of blue-green energy. The consortium responded with overwhelming force. Their ships launched a barrage of weapons fire that hammered against the moon's shields. Though the human-enhanced defenses held, the sheer volume of fire was concerning. Second wave moving into position, Linda announced. The dreadnoughts are beginning to power up their main weapons. This was what they had been waiting for. Once the dreadnoughts committed to the attack, they would be vulnerable from behind. Signal the fleet, Sam ordered. Execute Phase 2. Throughout the debris field, the supposedly dead ships suddenly came to life. Engines flared as human and Syrian vessels surged forward, accelerating toward the rear of the unsuspecting consortium fleet. Weapons hot? Jake called from Tactical, targeting the engine sections of the dreadnoughts. The combined human-Syrian force struck like a hammer from behind. Enhanced by Syrian technology, the human weapons tore through the rear shields of the surprise consortium vessels. The smaller Syrian ships darted between the enemy vessels, their precise attacks targeting vulnerable points that their scans had identified. Direct hits on 2 dreadnoughts, Jake reported, his voice rising with excitement. Their engines are damaged. They're trying to turn to face us. Sam leaned forward in her chair. All ships, focus fire on the rightmost dreadnought. Execute attack? Pattern Delta. The human ships moved in perfect coordination, something the consortium had never encountered before. 3 ships would attack simultaneously from different angles, then peel away as another 3 took their place, never giving the enemy time to focus their defenses on the main dreadnought. The consortium commander realized they had fallen into a trap. The front half of their fleet was engaged with the moon's defenses, while the rear was under attack from ships that had appeared from nowhere. They began to issue orders to regroup. They're trying to reform their lines, Linda said. The forward elements are breaking off from the moon to come to the aid of the dreadnoughts. Sam nodded. This too was expected. Signal the Syrians on the moon. Execute Phase 3. From the surface of the moon, dozens of small Syrian fighter craft launched into space. Too small to be effective in normal combat, they had been modified, with the help of human engineers, to carry a single, powerful, explosive device each. As the consortium ships turned to deal with the threat behind them, the small Syrian fighters slipped through the gaps in their formation. Each targeted a specific weak point identified by the combined human-Syrian intelligence teams. Syrian strike force is in position, Eric reported. They're beginning their attack runs. The small fighters darted in, released their payloads, and darted away. Explosions bloomed across the hulls of the consortium vessels. Systems failed, weapons went offline, and shields collapsed. In the chaos, the human fleet pressed their advantage. The Valiant led a direct assault on the lead dreadnought, its weapons enhanced by Syrian technology cutting through the enemy's weakened defenses. Their command ship is vulnerable, Jake called out, main weapons targeting their bridge section. Some hesitated for just a moment. This was the point of no return. If they destroyed the consortium command ship, there would be no possibility of negotiation. But after seeing what these invaders had done to the Syrians, she knew there could be no peace with such an enemy. Fire, she ordered. The Valiant's main cannons fired in unison, joined by 2 other human ships. The combined blasts struck the dreadnought's command center, causing a catastrophic chain reaction that tore through the massive vessel. As the consortium flagship began to break apart, confusion spread through their fleet. Without central coordination, their methodical attack patterns fell apart. Some ships continued to fight, while others began to retreat. They're breaking formation, Linda reported. Approximately 40% of their remaining vessels are withdrawing from the system. The battle wasn't over. The remaining consortium ships fought with desperate ferocity. A Syrian vessel exploded under concentrated fire, and the UES Guardian took a direct hit that left it drifting and powerless. Engineering reports our enhanced engine modifications are beginning to fail, Greg informed Sam. We have maybe 10 more minutes at this output level before systems start burning out. Sam studied the tactical display. They needed to end this quickly. All ships, focus fire on their remaining command vessels. Syrian fighters, target their engines. Let's finish this. For the next several minutes, the battle raged across the space around the moon. Human and Syrian ships darted between the larger consortium vessels, striking with precision and then pulling away before the enemy could respond effectively. One by one, the remaining consortium command ships were disabled or destroyed. Without leadership, the lesser vessels began to retreat in earnest, jumping away to safety. Finally, the last of the fighting stopped. The space around the Syrian moon, so recently filled with weapons fire and explosions, fell quiet. The debris of destroyed ships, both consortium and defender, drifted silently on the Valiant's bridge. Sam allowed herself to sink back into her chair. "Damage report," she said, her voice hoarse from shouting orders. Greg checked the incoming reports from throughout the ship. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7, contained by emergency force fields. Engine room reporting critical damage to the FTL drive, weapon systems at 40% capacity, 23 injured, 8 critically. And the fleet? Greg's face was grim. The Guardian is dead in space, but most of her crew survived. The Hope took heavy damage but remains operational. The rest report moderate to severe damage but are still combat capable. We lost 28 crew members across the fleet. Sam closed her eyes briefly, honoring the dead. Then she looked at the view screen, where the remaining consortium ships were vanishing into FTL jumps. "They're running," Jake said, a note of pride in his voice. "We did it." Eric turned from his console. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from the Syrian command center. Luminous thread of hope wishes to speak with you." The main screen changed to show the Syrian leader, its skin glowing with bright patterns that the translation system identified as joy and gratitude. "Captain Wright," the alien said, "you and your people have done what we thought impossible." 2 weeks after the battle, the combined human and Syrian fleet remained in orbit around the moon. Repairs were well underway, though the UES Valiant would never be fully restored. The damage to its FTL drive was beyond repair with the materials available. In the grand meeting chamber of the Syrian habitat, Captain Sam Wright stood before the gathered Syrian council. Her uniform was freshly pressed for the occasion, though the scars on her face from the battle would remain with her forever. "The Void Consortium has been driven from your system," Sam said to the assembled aliens. "Our long-range sensors show no sign of their return in the immediate future. You are safe, at least for now." Luminous thread of hope floated forward, its skin glowing with patterns of gratitude. "What you and your people have done cannot be measured. You came as strangers to help strangers. You fought and died for a species you had never met. The debt we owe can never be repaid." Sam shook her head. "There is no debt between friends. Humanity came to help because it was the right thing to do." The Syrian leader's skin pulsed with what the translators now recognized as deep emotion. "Nevertheless, we wish to offer what we can. Our scientists have studied your damaged vessels. Though the Valiant cannot be fully repaired, we can help modify your other ships for the journey home, and we would like to send representatives back to Earth with you to establish formal relations between our peoples." Ambassador Kevin Reeves stepped forward at this point. "We would be honored to have Syrian representatives return with us. This could be the beginning of a new era for both our species." In the days that followed, preparations were made for the journey home. 6 of the 7 human ships would return to Earth, carrying not only their crews but also a delegation of Syrians eager to learn more about the humans who had saved them. The UES Guardian, too damaged to make the journey, would remain behind along with the Valiant. Sam had made the difficult decision to stay with her ship. The Guardian needs a skeleton crew to maintain its systems, and the Syrians could use our help rebuilding their defenses, she explained to her officers. "I'm asking for volunteers to remain here with me." To her surprise, over 100 crew members volunteered, including Greg, Jake, Nicole, and many others who had fought alongside her. They would stay behind as the first human embassy to an alien world, helping the Syrians rebuild while learning their advanced technology. On the day of departure, the crews gathered for a farewell ceremony. Captain John Weber of the UES Intrepid would lead the fleet back to Earth. He stood before the assembled humans and Syrians, his voice solemn. "We came as 7 ships with one mission, to answer a call for help from across the stars. We return as 6 ships with a new alliance and the knowledge that we are not alone in this universe. Those who stay behind and those who have fallen will not be forgotten." A memorial had been erected near the Syrian central habitat, bearing the names of all who had died in the defense of the alien world. Humans and Syrians gathered around it, paying their respects in their own ways. The humans stood in silent salute while the Syrian skin glowed with patterns of remembrance and honor. As the fleet prepared to depart, Sam watched from the observation deck of the damaged Valiant. Her ship would never fly again, but its mission had been fulfilled beyond anything they could have imagined when they left Earth. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Greg asked, standing beside her. Sam looked at him, then back at the departing ships. "Coming here, staying behind, all of it was the right thing. We showed who we are as a species when faced with a choice, to help or to turn away. We chose to help." Greg nodded. "Some of the crew are already talking about settling here permanently, starting families with the Syrians, if that's even possible." Sam smiled. "Dr. Foster is already working with Syrian biologists to see if our species are compatible. Either way, I think humanity just became part of something much bigger than ourselves." On Earth, the return of the fleet was met with celebration and wonder. The Syrian representatives were welcomed with open arms, their bioluminescent forms causing amazement wherever they went. World leaders gathered to hear their story and to establish formal diplomatic relations. President Olivia Martinez addressed the United Nations with Syrian representatives beside her. "When we sent our ships to answer an alien distress call, we didn't know what we would find. What we discovered was not just another intelligent species, but a reflection of our own best qualities, the courage to stand against overwhelming odds, a compassion to help those in need, the wisdom to build bridges rather than walls." The Syrians shared their advanced technology freely with their human saviors. Medical breakthroughs that had taken the aliens centuries to develop were adapted for human physiology, curing diseases that had plagued humanity for generations. Energy production methods that were clean and nearly limitless helped solve Earth's environmental crisis. In return, humans taught the Syrians about art, music, and literature, concepts that the logical aliens found fascinating and new. Human unpredictability and creativity, which had proven so valuable in battle, now served to enrich Syrian culture in ways they had never imagined. Back in the Epsilon Eridani system, the human settlers worked alongside their Syrian hosts to rebuild. The wreckage of the Valiant was transformed into the foundation of a permanent human settlement on the moon's surface, a place where both species could live and work together. Sam oversaw the construction of the settlement, which the combined community named Unity. As she watched humans and Syrians working side by side, she reflected on how far they had come. One evening, as Epsilon Eridani sat behind the curve of the moon, Sam stood with luminous thread of hope on a balcony overlooking the growing settlement. "Your people continue to surprise us," the Syrian leader said. "You adapt so quickly, think in ways we never would have considered." Sam smiled. "And your people have taught us so much about patience, about looking at problems from different angles." The alien's skin pulsed with curiosity. "There is something I have wanted to ask since you first arrived. Your species has a history of conflict, of fighting among yourselves. Yet you cross the stars to fight for strangers. How do you reconcile these two aspects of your nature?" Sam thought for a moment. "Humans are complicated. We have the capacity for both great cruelty and great kindness. Throughout our history, we've struggled with these opposing parts of ourselves. But I like to think that we're learning, slowly, to choose the better path." The Syrian skin glowed with understanding. Perhaps that is why you were able to defeat the consortium when no one else could. You understand conflict in ways we peace-loving species never could. A year after the battle, a new fleet arrived from Earth, not warships this time, but vessels of exploration and diplomacy. They brought news from home and fresh supplies for the settlement. They also brought a message for Sam from President Martinez. The Syrian representatives have proposed a formal alliance between our worlds, the president's message said. But they've gone further than that. They've reached out to other peaceful species who have suffered at the hands of the consortium, species who were too afraid to fight back before. They've told them about humanity, about what we did together. These species want to meet us, to form a coalition of mutual defense and cooperation. You didn't just save one alien species, Captain Wright. You may have changed the course of galactic history. As Sam finished reading the message, she looked out at the stars visible through the settlement's dome. Somewhere out there, the Void Consortium was still conquering and destroying. But now, for the first time, they would face something they had never encountered before, a united front of diverse species, each bringing their own strengths to the alliance. And at the heart of this new coalition would be the unlikely friendship between humans and Syrians, a bond forged in battle, but built on something much stronger, the simple choice to help when help was needed. When aliens cried for help, humanity sent a war fleet, Sam said softly to herself. And in doing so, we found our place among the stars.